And then I would like to introduce Andy Redman, Director of Open Access and Open Access Books at Oxford University Press. So we will listen to one perspective from the publishers on open access models for journals and books. So the title will be Publishers and Models, the Ecstasy of Gold. Inspired by Demi, I think.
I ought to have checked before making that. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
And can you see the screen?
We cannot, yes, you should show your camera perhaps as well so that we can see the speaker mode. Okay. And put in presentation mode as well, your PowerPoint. Before we were able to see you in the camera, we can see your screen.
Okay, let me just see how I do that. Does that work?
Yes, we can see you now. So
good. Okay.
Yes. Great. And now we just need, I mean, you can open the presentation mode of the PowerPoint if you want. That's fine. You just go ahead, Andy. That's fine. Perfect.
Yes, and thank you, Lotta, and thank you also to the Institute and the Library Director and the President for the invitation as well. I was wondering, as Dr. Verbeeker was speaking, whether I ought to explain the Ecstasy of Gold reference, and I may do that. The Ecstasy of Gold is the Morricone sequence from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I thought I would just pick up on Dr. Verbeeker's theme for the presentation, and give you a question really about whether gold represents ruthless profiteering or whether it's something which is more genuine and more valuable in the way that it's used, and in that sequence it ends up in the graveyard where the ugly of the three is looking for the gold in the graveyard. So there's a question there about whether the only good publisher is actually a deceased publisher. From OUP's perspectives, open access is we regard it as core to our mission. We think
Andy,
it's a
sorry, I'm interrupting you. Apologizes for that, but either your screen is frozen because we think that you did not share it properly. So if you maybe stop sharing and you share again. You want to say, Simone, you have a clue what happened? Yes?
Yes. Can you hear me, Andy? I think you have shared the main PowerPoint window and not the presentation.
I have, yeah.
When you selected the windows. Yep.
So let me... I'm going to see if I can share the correct screen.
You should try to pick the presentation in question, or you can share the whole desktop, but that's a bit more risky.
So now... does that work?
Give it a little bit of time. We should see. Not yet. You should see some kind of frame around it.
Excuse me, Andy, do you have just one screen or two monitors? I mean,
I have a second screen, but I've just tried to move the presentation to just the primary screen.
Yeah, okay.
So when you click share screen, you should pick the window with the file name of the PowerPoint in question, probably. Yeah, we can see content. Yes, yes, great. You're on slide 3.
Is that working? Good. Excellent. Yes, apologies. The view of the press is that open access is consistent with our mission. We recognise that open is a way of fulfilling the needs of researchers, readers, and customers, and making sure that access to scholarly materials is straightforward, and also that, as points that have been made by both Simon and Demi, that it's important for the long-term sustainability of research communication for the academy as well. OUP is the world's largest university press publisher of open research. We have over 90 fully open access journals, 300 journals, more than 300 journals with data availability policies. We published 50, or we will have published 50 open access monographs in 2021. The open access articles per month rate for us is running at about 1,500, and we now have 23 read and publish agreements. To give you an idea of the rate of growth in terms of our open access publishing, these charts are a reflection of the number of open access articles we've published by year, starting from 2005. And you can see that as at 2021, the estimate is that we will be in excess of 20,000 articles. There's a standing commitment to quality with regard to all of our publishing. It makes no difference whether something is published on an open basis or whether it's on a for sale model. All OUP books and articles are subject to the same peer review process as non-open access content. All of our journals follow the same publishing ethics as subscription journals, including the COPE guidelines. And we work with both the Directory of Open Access Journals and the Directory of Open Access Books to ensure that we are working with them to monitor the standards for open access. In terms of sustainability is a word which is frequently used by publishers and increasingly viewed with skepticism by customers as to whether what publishers are doing is looking for profit. And really to note from the perspective of OUP as a university press, we are a not-for-profit mission-based publisher. And our mission is simply with regard to publishing high-quality research outputs. Over 300 of the journals that we do publish are published on behalf of learned societies and other organisations, and there's a handful of partner societies on whose behalf we publish journals included in that slide. I mentioned the ecstasy of gold because from our perspective, the funding, the gold funding or read and publish funding for open access content allows us to maintain the quality of our publishing. There are alternatives, and we're certainly not suggesting that the traditional route should remain the primary route in terms of research communications. But it is important to note that green routes aren't free. Green deposit is only possible if it's part of a sustainable funding model for research and for publishing. It depends on somebody allowing that work to progress to a certain stage to be able to have something to publish. Gold is sometimes criticised as replicating pre-existing commercial profits, and in regard to that, I would make the point again that we publish to unchanged quality thresholds. Increasingly, though, there are additional costs to open and to not just to open access, but also to open research and open science. Some of the issues that Simon touched on earlier in relation to data and process standards do bring costs for publishing as well if the publisher is involved in dissemination of the various different stages of a research record. As a press, and particularly as a department of the university, we've always taken measures to avoid double dipping. Double dipping has come to mean a number of things, but certainly at the end of every year, with regard to every journal, we have always looked at open output and made adjustments to any prices for the subscriptions that are associated with those journals. And our open access monographs are currently breaking even financially. But that's based on pre-COVID residual print sales, and as you will know, the effects of the pandemic in terms of print holdings have seen a further downward trend in terms of actual physical print holdings in favour of digital. So the idea that that as a publisher we are working in pursuit of some significant profit on our publishing is actually not really correct. I want to talk through transformation briefly in terms of some of these topics. Read and publish agreements, the idea of flipping journals, which is the point at which you can turn a journal which has previously depended on subscription income to fully open access. Investment in the author experience, in open access within the press, and then a couple of slides on fully open access journals and open research just to conclude as well. In 2022, we have flipped 3 journals, or we've planned to flip 3 journals to open access. The European Journal of Public Health, Interactive Cardiovascular and Thoracic Surgery, and the Journal of Plant Ecology. We've created models so that we can actually monitor the open access performance of each journal, and we have an annual conversation with our society partners about whether there is a sustainable route to flipping a journal to fully open access, and that's a decision which obviously we take in conjunction with the partners who are responsible for the journals we publish. We will have launched 11 open access titles between June 2021 and the start of next year. 4 of them are open access journals which are joining OUP from 2022 for either from being society published or from other publishers, and a number of the others are included in the pane on the right, including 2 new open journals that we've started in specific areas, in specific disciplinary areas. On read and publish and transformative agreements, traditionally customers have purchased a subscription, and the affiliated authors or their institutions would have paid APCs to publish, as Dr. Verbeeker noted. So the read and the publish elements were separate, and in a read and publish scenario, the customer purchases the right to read the subscription content and also to cover the APC costs for their authors to be able to publish open. Read and publish deals, I think, are part of an ongoing conversation about how the landscape can be changed between publishers, between institutions, and between authors. Dr. Verbeeker raised a number of important points about the limitations of read and publish and some of the pitfalls that those sorts of arrangements may incorporate. I think it's interesting and helpful that all parties are aware of the extent to which these deals can achieve what they're aimed to. They are a transitional model. I think they've only become possible because there has been better awareness of the value of open access and the cost of open access as between all stakeholders in the academy and in the publishing community. And from that perspective, I think they actually offer a lot in terms of getting us to the next stage. But as Dr. Verbeeker noted, it may be that read and publish deals themselves are not the eventual destination. They simply allow us to achieve the next stage in pushing an increasing amount of content into an open access into open access. We have read and publish deals around the world, as you'll see, and again, to echo one of the risks that was flagged by Dr. Verbeeker. A lot of these are in the research-intensive Western territories that you would expect to see, and there is clearly an interest. That whilst there is interest, there's clearly an issue in terms of the extent to which the Global South is able to participate in read and publish deals. Having said that, as a university press, we do have a number of schemes whereby subscription fees are either heavily discounted or waived for countries that fall into the developing country bracket as defined by the World Bank. There's a slide which I mentioned that we have 23 read and published agreements currently. There's a slide which lists a number of the actual parties that are involved, from JISC through to the National Library of Sweden. Our read and publish principles, and we apply these, and these exist as a framework for how we approach all of our read and publish arrangements. They're intended to be flexible, to be transparent, and to be inclusive. The aim is to further the mission of our society partners as well as the press, and as I said, to meet the other objectives that we have for our open access publishing. They are designed to protect the long-term sustainability of our society partners as well as the customers, and as a mechanism, I think they are probably the right thing at the right time, although I accept a number of the issues that have been flagged are material issues in terms of longer term development for open research and open access. This slide really is just to give an indication as to the extent to which we have had to scale up to support open access. We have now an open access strategy team within the press, as well as an open access publishing team, and we have also been bringing open into our existing publishing infrastructure. There's a new author portal that will go live early next year. We are currently working on integration with OA Switchboard, as well as within the UK integration with the JISC router to ensure that content that is published open is disseminated in as frictionless a way as possible. In terms of open infrastructure, there are a number of key elements to this that are in play. As has been indicated in by other speakers, a lot is happening in this space, and a lot is happening on the infrastructure side in terms of allowing standards, as well as environments, as well as means to support citations and discoverability of open content. OUP has joined the Initiative for Open Abstracts, as well as Open Switchboard. We are a sponsor of the DOAJ and a member of DOAB and OAPEN. We've registered 3 transformative journals thus far. We have also applied research data policies on over 300 of our journals, and this year we will have published our 150th open access book, with the amount of titles, book titles publishing open on an annual basis in excess of 50 titles for this year. I wanted to conclude, and really I think this will lead into the next presentation, and by just looking briefly at the wider horizons that are associated with open and open research. Open access is is part of a rapidly developing and rapidly changing research environment and research culture. And we are looking at other ways that we can deal with delivering some of the potential benefits of open research as a publisher. Transparency, collaboration, reproducibility, as was talked about by Simon earlier, and also the speed of the research process, the earlier dissemination of research or parts of the research. We are looking across the board at how we can assist with research data policies and data availability. We are also looking at the moment at research data best practice, which we're working with across all of our journals partners to see whether there are standards that we can adopt or support or training requirements that we can help meet. We're currently looking at preprint integration into our overall system as a form of versioning our article content to allow for earlier release of content. We're also looking at Figshare and Dryad integration to assist with linking to data sets and to the representation of data. And we're also looking at the moment at how we can improve peer review. We've recently launched a reviewer academy with Brain, and that's something which we're looking to extend across our publishing, not just for journals, but also with books, not just in terms of helping bring higher quality to peer review, but also in pursuit of our own diversity and inclusion goals to ensure that that people are encouraged to participate in the review process, as we believe that that's for the greater good of open science. And that's it in terms of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Andy.
More information about library services can be found on our website, and don't forget to follow our blog and social media channels to stay up to date with the latest news.